I'm Marianne Grady Flores. We're here in South Georgia at the Kings Bay Plowshares pretrial motion hearing that happened yesterday, and I'm sitting with Martha Hennessy, one of the Kings Bay Plowshares 7 co-defendants. And Martha, welcome, and tell us what your action was like, what you did, and then share with us how it was for you the day in court yesterday.
Thank you, Marianne, for all this hard work you're doing. Well, the action was over a year ago, and so, I can't give you too fresh impressions. A lot has happened since then, and the older I get, the harder it is to retain freshness of things. But we went to the military base, 7 of us, to protest the Trident nuclear sub-weapons system. Mm-hmm. And we chose the anniversary of the killing, which I believe is the state killing of Martin Luther King Jr., April 4th, the 50th anniversary, 2018, when we walked onto the base. And I posted an indictment on the administrative building of the strategic weapons facility of the Atlantic. And I also carried in my raincoat pocket a copy of Dan Ellsberg's book, The Doomsday Machine, and left that there in a Ziploc bag.
What's the subtitle of the book?
I can't remember. Something about the planning.
Confessions of a Nuclear Planner.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tag team.
Yes, and so the action was very powerful, was very sacred, was very scary. I had to really override my all too human fears. Mm-hmm. And what gave me courage was knowing that this is what the world needed and this is what God wanted. And the hearing yesterday, the oral arguments, pretrial oral arguments, there was the jockeying for who is in power and who's going to dictate what happens in that courtroom. And I feel very confident in Stephanie McDonald, my attorney. I forfeited my status as a pro se defendant so that Stephanie could be on our legal team. She's very good. She's a local attorney. And she did a beautiful, superb job of arguing the RFRA defense.
Tell us what RFRA is.
The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which came into being in 1993 and has been used to set not the greatest precedents in court with corporate interests. I think it was actually intended to protect the religious rights of indigenous peoples who have lost their sacred sites and sacred rituals. Mm-hmm. And we have Vern Walker, who is also on the legal team, who had an amazing inspiration to use this Religious Freedom Restoration Act defense. And that's the first time in Plowshares' history of nearly 40 years that this defense is being used. And right now, the judge has to make a decision about whether to dismiss the case based on the fact that this is a religious exercise and needs to be protected by our laws.
That's amazing. Really amazing, Martha. And I know there were 4 of your co-defendants that got to speak yesterday, and 2 of the attorneys, or 2, is that correct?
Yes, I believe 2 attorneys spoke and 4 pro se defendants spoke.
And what do you feel is the bottom line? What's at stake here?
The human experiment is at stake here. I mean, we are at a crossroads. We are speaking of climate chaos, but we're not speaking of nuclear annihilation. And I do think that the 2 issues actually are inextricably linked. The U.S. military has the largest carbon footprint on the globe. So I am hoping that we are able to link these 2 issues in the public's mind so that they can give grave attention to both issues and to know that we have to deal with both.
Wonderful.
And I also want the federal courts to allow expert testimony on the legality of the nuclear weapons.
Amen. Do you think that's a possibility?
There's always a possibility for anything, right?
Yes, yes. Yes. And was there anything that struck or sticks out in your mind or in your heart from yesterday's testimony that you want to share? Just a thumbnail of any testimony. I mean,
I think your sister Claire was beautiful and, extremely eloquent and pacifist, and I think the judge recognized that, and I am so grateful for that happening.
beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Martha. And for our viewers, we wanted to let you know that those pre-trial oral arguments are available on our website at kingsbayplowshares7.org. So you can do some research. You can look up what the previous magistrate, the interim judge, Cheesebro, wrote as a 80-page recommendation. And now we're in front of the judge that's going to take the case, Judge Lisa Godbey Wood. And so we're looking forward to her dropping the charges under the RFRA law. And if she doesn't, she said, if necessary, I will try to set a trial date soon. So that's the latest from the Kings Bay Plowshares support group. Thank you.